morning. I've got a fun one for you today. Usually things are opposite on the farm, so when I say we have a fun one, it's probably not exactly that. It's really hard to have anything to complain about when your crop looks like this. You keep getting sunshine and nice easy rains. We're off to a great start here in Central Illinois. Just give me a little bit, I'll think about something to complain about. Would you just look at this corn? That was our first planted field over a month ago now. Frosted off all the way down to the ground. It reestablished itself and it's still probably our largest corn right now. I figured out if I drive quick enough as I pan by the field, the green blur will just make it appear like our crops look great, even if they don't. We're starting on yesterday's project. Got to finish putting the sweep in the hole in this south bin, right to the grain bin first thing in the morning. It's always an ideal way to start. Yesterday we did the hard part of this equation, which is dragging the sweep in. Gravity is still working on our side, pulling that corn down from the walls. It's dry, it's going to go pretty low before it quits. Probably this load. I'll have to get in there, put the sweep in the hole, power it up, start getting this corn out of the bin on the bottom. Sweeping the corn out of the bottom of your bin is kind of like wiping your butt. In all reality, you probably don't have to do it, but at the same time, if you don't, you're going to leave a lot behind. I'm not sure if that was going to make YouTube. She's slowing down. It's getting real close to stopping. Intermittently, I can see the post for mounting the sweep auger, so that means it's not going to be too much longer. As long as there's not some mold or other kind of growth in the bin, you really don't need the mask until you start turning on the sweep, shoveling, and brooming, just because those generate a lot of dust. Right now, not very much dust in here at all. Game time. First load is done. Usually when the bin officially quits running, there's about 2,500 bushel of corn. I'd say we got about 500 bushels off with the sweep, so 2 good loads ought to get the rest of it. If I had to guess, it'll take Jeff about 35, maybe 40 minutes round trip to get back here. My truck is hooked up to the grain trailer, but I've got other things I want to work on as opposed to doing this. So I'll just set a timer on my phone. In about 30 minutes or so, I'll come back over to this bin site, start on the next one. Manual labor inside the grain bin is just a necessary evil as part of my job. The thing I'm excited to do today involves plumbing on my tanker trailer. Okay, this is the project I've been waiting weeks to finish. I finally had the supplies, the hardware, and the time to do so. I'm going to be plumbing in this 3-inch inline meter. I needed these longer pieces of straight pipe because according to Banjo, for this meter to properly read right, or at least be super accurate, you need 10 times the diameter of the size of pipe in unrestricted straight pipe on both sides. These flange extensions were the easiest thing I could find. Stainless steel piping would probably be a better choice, except I'm not a machinist and I don't know how to thread pipe once it's been cut. I just took the simple route. May not have been the cheapest. Our goal is to plumb this into here somewhere, keep our long hose for filling, and we're also going to put together an additional supplemental hose attachment if I want to extend the length of the hose beyond where it is now. Before I really dive into this, I just want to give the disclaimer that I'm not an engineer, nor am I a plumbing expert. What I am, though, is a man with 2 capable hands, a set of tools, and a credit card to buy supplies, and we're just going to figure out the rest as we go. All of these flange connections have a gasket and then this big heavy-duty bolt-driven clamp that holds them together. Kind of just put them together, throw the clamp around, and then tighten it up. This meter does have a flow direction requirement. It's heading that way. Okay, that is assembled and somewhat tightened down. I'll have to double back on that one once we get it in place. Now the question is, where do I put it? I kind of want to have it right here above this side light because there is a mounting bracket right there. It could sit on there without issue. In a perfect world, I'd secure it here somehow. I definitely want to have it strapped down. I'm pretty confident in the construction of all of this heavy-duty Palmer, so not really super concerned about it, you know, sitting here with a lot of leverage on it. At the same time, though, I don't really want that going anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, there is my alarm. It's been 33 minutes. Time to head back to the bin. I'll check back in with you guys in a little bit. Fast forward about an hour and a half, headed back over to the bin site for what should be the last load. I've been hopping back and forth intermittently between sweeping out the grain bin and working on my plumbing job. Unfortunately, any project that is mechanically intensive like the plumbing, when I'm involved, does not go as fast as I ever plan on. I'm not the most talented at that stuff, but we are getting it hammered out. Once we get this last load of corn out of the south 30-foot bin, we'll move everything over to this next one to the north. It's pretty much an identical bin. I'll go back to doing my own stuff full time for the rest of the day. Chris and Jeff will stay here and haul out of this bin in the time being. That way we don't have everyone focused on one thing at once. Here's a fun little tidbit of information for you all. That new 48-foot grain bin we're preparing to put in south of the 48-foot bin at the main farm will hold more corn than all three of these bins combined. And as a matter of fact, it may actually hold as much as 4 of these bins, which is pretty impressive. The real silver lining, other than all the new storage, is that it will have a built-in power sweep, so I don't have to horse one around all the time. There's one off the list at this bin site. Now we just have to move everything over that we use. We use the same motor on all the bins. One, because funds are tight on this farm. And two, we're so far away from home, or far enough away, I guess remote is a better word, that we're afraid that people would steal the motors. So we just move them from bin to bin, and when we're done, we take them home.
Wait a second, Andy, I get the cord out of your way.
Yeah, be all right.
I'll get under, just put it wherever you want.
Now, good. After some intensive labor, we're set up and ready to haul out of the north one. Of course, Dad showed up. He's just a little over a week out from his rotator cuff surgery. You can't hold an old dog like him down, even if the doctor says he should be taking it lighter. Really not much I can do to stop them. We fast forwarded once again to the next morning. I'm going to show you my plumbing work. Please take it easy on me. Obviously nothing has changed in the pump area. I ran these flange connections, got my meter secured, and I've got a very highly engineered fence post or signpost. It's acting as extra support underneath all of this. I know, it's not exactly the Golden Gate Bridge by any means. In hindsight, if I were doing it again, I definitely would have just got some stainless steel 3-inch pipe, 30 inches on both sides, and had someone thread it for me. At the end of the day, it probably would have been cheaper and more reliable and robust than this thing. I ran into an issue right here in this area with my wire reinforced hose not being able to make this curve without kinking. I really want my line wide open if possible, so I had to get a long 6-foot or so section of that hose and wrap it around. It's not ideal and it's not the most clean cut, but it should work. Much to my surprise, some dryness has actually snuck up on me out in our fields. I could probably be spraying right now. I did not realize it was going to gray off so quickly. I'm going to go ahead and hook my semi up to the tanker. We're going to put some water in it and test this for leaks. If it's good to go, we're going to start getting our ducks in a row to go spray corn herbicide. Obviously, this has been an oversight on my part that we had ground that was this close to ready. Yesterday, I looked at it, which it was Wednesday. I thought Friday would be the day we'd be going. Now it looks like not only can I get started, we can also send the side dress bars at the same time. This Hagee is parked exactly where I need the tanker moved to get to the hose. I really want to do a leak test before we start putting corn herbicide in, because at any given point in time, I can have $10,000 to $15,000 worth of product in the tanker. Although I guess everything I did is on the pressure side of the pump, and that valve is always shut if I'm not filling, so it's not like it's just gonna leak out going down the road. Hopefully no one parked something new behind me that I don't know about. My lack of preparation has me feeling rather flustered right now, though the 10-day forecast is pretty dry. Chance of rain 2 days from now, very minor, 1/10 or 2, which wouldn't put us out of the field for very long. I just know our corn needs sprayed and I should be on it already. Bad start to the day. All right, round 2. I figured surely by the time I get everything else ready to go, there'll be enough water in here to check the plumbing on that. Okay, on to the next thing. Currently, the Hagie has a 6,000 Starfire receiver with the base level SF1 activation, meaning its repeatability is not the greatest. It does a fine job for basic tasks. However, when you get into more intensive passes where you want to stay in the exact same spot, you really need RTK. Currently, we only have one RTK receiver on the farm. That is on Dad's corn planter tractor. I'm gonna rob that real quick, do a little switcheroo, and then we're probably gonna keep it on the sprayer for the rest of the year. That way, especially once we get into in-crop soybean application, where I'm gonna be making 2 passes throughout the rest of the season, I have the exact same line. The RTK lines are supposed to be infinitely repeatable and reliable, meaning that they do not space out during the day. A standard SF1 satellite receiver line actually can drift as the day goes on. Obviously, that's not good if you're spraying corn, because if you're in a 300-acre field, well, as the day goes on, you may get farther and farther off. An inch here or there adds up pretty quickly, and next thing you know, you're on top of the crop. Of course, a good applicator would know that and either take the wheel manually and adjust their steering lines. Either way, you're better off having RTK on your sprayer for post-application. Well, that hinders my plan. Dad's 6,000 RTK receivers not on his tractor. I guess we did let Bill Uphoff borrow it, and we've not planted any corn since, so Dad must have it somewhere for safekeeping. For those of you who are unaware how the steering systems work, they all communicate with satellites. Satellites move throughout the day, throughout the season. That means your lines are not going to stay 100% accurate. They'll be straight, but they may not be in the exact right spot. The RTK is a real-time kinematic system. It uses an additional point of contact on the ground, typically a radio base station somewhere, that triangulates that data, meaning that your lines never move. To give you my 100% honest opinion on that, I really don't think RTK is necessary for 95% of what you do on the farm. Most farmers are not doing precision farming. They're not strip tilling. They're not trying to row crops individually. Tillage, planting, you can get by with the most basic of auto steer. As long as it's straight and you know it's in the right spot, you're probably good to go. This spraying though, I think I might as well put the RTK receiver on it. This is a topic for a completely different day. Some of you may find this interesting. We have actually put in an order to trade all of our receivers, I think 6 or 7 that we have, for the new John Deere 7000 receivers. I'm giving the boss man a call, see where that receiver is. He's gonna answer. That's convenient. I should have known to look in Dad's office. That's usually where he keeps these things. It's like a little jungle gym. So these are all just plug and play. Doesn't matter if it's RTK or SF1. This 6000 came on the Hagie, so it is technically mine. This 6000 receiver and the Hagie itself are the only 2 things on the farm that I own personally. I'm not super heavily involved in ownership because I'm just a young little lad in the game of farming. That looks secure. RTK 6000 is on, and we just gotta pop that into place. Does it not matter which way it goes? Must not. Okay, that was pretty easy. Even if it does fall, it shouldn't go far. No big deal. This is only a $10,000 radio and receiver. The transition has been made on the receiver. I'm gonna pull my truck out of the way and unfold the sprayer to look at a few more things on the boom. In an effort to reduce over-application and excess consumption of product, I was playing around with my section control settings a little bit. The on and off and delay was a little bit too soon, so it was turning on too soon before I crossed the on point. It was 1.1 second mechanical delay from master on to spraying. I backed it down to 0.8. I don't know if that's right, but it is technically 25% lower, give or take a little bit. I learned my lesson on the soybean residual with how much I oversprayed, so I'm going to do a little bit better job to not have that same problem. Okay, next project on the to-do list, I'm going to put a little piece of clear tubing here on the end. I'm going to hose clamp it down, and I'm going to use it kind of as a visual indicator of where the end of my boom is. My depth perception 60 foot off from the cab is not that great. I'm going to be applying some products, specifically glyphosate or Roundup, that will kill any grass it touches. I want to stay off of any non-GMO crops next to me on our corn. I want to stay off of the neighbors' yards, especially want to stay away from any of their gardens or ornamentals. So we're going to put this to at least have an idea of where it's spraying. These nozzles do fan out, so even though this last nozzle is 6 inches off of where I'm about to mount this, it looks like it's spraying another 12 inches, so we do need to keep that in mind. I cannot emphasize enough how little glyphosate or Roundup it takes to kill grass. It is very effective at that. Broadleaves, on the other hand, most of them are resistant to it. Initially, that was not the case. It was the silver bullet, the do-all, but its overuse and abuse ended up for a lot of natural resistance to form within weed species. That's a whole nother can of worms. If I got every project right on the first try, I wouldn't have anything to do all day. It's called job security. There you go. That ought to help me somewhat. It's just clear plastic tubing. If it falls off, it's not that big of a deal. I'd rather it rip off than get caught and cause damage to the boom, which is highly unlikely. I'm probably only going to do the right side of the boom. I'm a right side around the field guy. I will do anything I need to do to ring a field with everything on the right. It doesn't matter if I'm planting, spraying, tilling. That's the side I'm used to, so that's usually the way I line up. First things first, these aren't buttons, they're photoreceptors, so you just hold your hand over them for 2 to 4 seconds as the meter indicates, and it turns on. EP means empty pipe. Valves are open, we'll turn the agitate valve on. We will choke this, idle it up a hair. It doesn't appear to have sprung a leak. Probably won't do that till we put the high dollar stuff in it. Okay, the to-do list is getting very short. You get this folded up, calibrate the terrain compensation module on the receiver I just put on, and lastly I need to fill up my clean water rinse tank because the product we're about to start applying on corn may require pretty frequent rinsing, at least daily, not like every couple hours, but when we're done for the day we're going to make sure we get it out of the booms. You can see I added some weights to the bottom of my streamer on the right side I just put on. I thought that might help drag it on the ground a little bit more so I can see. All right, I wiggled my wheels a little bit to mark my position. We're gonna go ahead and start the first calibration and then turn around. Shoot, I can barely even tell where I did that at. I thought the all-wheel steer would leave more of a mark. Okay, we'll just do this for now. If I think it's off, I'll go do the advanced calibration in the field. The problem with the Hagee in particular is that it will not turn auto steer on or not even let you use a line unless the boom's unfolded. And I cannot really unfold the boom here in the farm lot. I barely have enough room when I'm well positioned. Alrighty, game time is quickly approaching. We are gonna mosey on up to Helena to pick up a 260 acre load of Acuron GT with a pound of atrazine, around 15 gallons to the acre. Not gonna talk too much about the herbicides in this video just because I'm gonna be focused on getting everything on and correct. Also going to try not to be in too much of a hurry. We've got a lot of dry ground, but at the same time, we're not going to be playing with little boy chemicals anymore. These are big boy chemicals. There's not a single thing in the blend I'm about to put in the tanker that I would want getting on the wrong crop. So we're going to be super careful. Time to head north. It's actually one heck of a nice day outside. Not a cloud in the sky, sun shining, warm temperatures. This is exactly what you want for spraying. Here we are, Helena. As they say, there's no time like the present. Let's head west and spray some corn. There's someone spraying a few miles east of where I'm headed, which is a pretty good sign that I'm good to go. Okay, we are here, and I am slightly nervous. Better. This product's a bit more milky than what we were spraying on our soybeans too. Easier to see. We're loaded with Acuron GT. Time to unfold and go find a nice, inconspicuous location to prime the boom. Right on the property line ought to work. I'm concerned about running over corn just because I've not spent a lot of time applying anything in crop. I barely even ran a side dress bar, let alone row crop cultivating, anything like that that a lot of you are used to doing. I think eventually you just have to come to terms with the fact that you're going to destroy some corn. That's just part of doing business.
It happens. That corn may still come out of that. I guess we'll see.
I'm just gonna walk around the boom and kind of see where I'm positioned. I kind of want to see where, if I'm lined up in the middle of a row, how far out my boom is, because the outside of the field is arguably the hardest part when you're spraying post corn.
Okay, I'm lined up right on the bulk row, so right off the left row from the planter. I'm basically right in between the two 60-foot passes. You can see that my boom does actually hang over farther than that. Also keep in mind, like I said earlier, this outside nozzle will spray product beyond this. So if I want to, I could actually cheat over another row. On the outside of the field, I'm not going to worry about it, but if I get next to a soybean crop or some non-GMO corn, I may do what I'm talking about and step over one more. Acuron GT packs one heck of a punch. Add in a pound of atrazine, and you've pretty much got the trinity for killing water hemp. Atrazine, Callisto, and bicyclopyrone. The Dual 2 Magnum doesn't really offer any kind of burn down potential. It's just a powerful residual. And then of course the glyphosate, it's really out here just to clean up grasses.
Except for our corn, obviously, it is Roundup ready or glyphosate tolerant. That is one of the beauties of it. You can spray that, take care of all your grass.
Hey, I recognize that tile plow. That's the guy that did all of our laterals for us last fall. Small world.
Alrighty folks, Acuron GT, quart of atrazine, 15 gallons an acre. We're gonna get after it. Holy smokes, look at all the little water hemp out here. It's always in the wetter parts of the farm where you see the most of it, because you have multiple years where you've had soybeans or corn take flooding damage, opens up room for water hemp to break through, reproduce, make a ton of seeds, and then you've got a lifetime of problems. Speaking of problems, I'm running these size 4 tips, which have me going much slower. I think I'm going to back my AWS or all-wheel steer shutoff speed down a lot, because if I'm doing 10 mile an hour, maybe 8 or 9 I guess around the outside, and my AWS turns on, that really screws with me. It's very hard to steer with AWS if you're not expecting it to be on. This dark ground is so soft that it's just pulling the Hagee all over the place. Not to mention, oh my, there's a lot of water hemp out here. That is not good. Hopefully this Callisto takes care of that. Wow, look at that pass on the outside there where I straddled the bulk rows. Looked like it was done by a professional. No corn was harmed. The nice thing about spraying this corn after it's been side dressed is that as long as I stay on the planter and side dress rig tracks, it'll actually kind of steer me, because I will fall into the groove that's already been cut, and it will kind of play with the steering on this Hagee. I've already mentioned that this ground is really soft, so when I have to take over the wheel, it gets a little haywire. Not to mention my dad's very creative planting job in spots. Definitely need to look at how straight his planting is as we move forward, because it does become more of an issue when you're starting to post-apply herbicides in corn. Against my better judgment, I went another round and I ran out. That's a good sign though that we made it to the first fill-up. This isn't really that bad, especially because I know if I run a little bit of corn over, it still ought to come up. Usually you have until about V6 before it's doomed, unless you push it down in the mud. Right now, we're probably V3, V4. I've actually had the pump just running, agitating, because I don't want the atrazine to settle out. I'm gonna go ahead and fill her up. New sight tube for my solution tank is working fantastic. The meter that I've spent all this time and money on is not working as good as I thought it would. That's normally the way my projects go. It's amazing how a lot of times the simple fix is always the better one. I will say that the meter is probably more of my fault than the Banjo company who makes the meter. My plumbing probably could use some improvement, so I might add that to my list. It also doesn't help that I have to watch the sight glass anyways, because I don't exactly trust the meter. So what good is the meter if you're not looking at it? Oh well, we're still laying the heat down out here. Going a lot better than I expected. Although any negative issues probably will not occur for at least 4 to 5 days when the neighbors start calling. Every additional day I spend behind the wheel of a sprayer, I get much more respect and appreciation for all the custom applicators out there who are doing thousands upon thousands acres more than I am a year. They definitely earn their money. and I'm sure a lot of times they're probably underpaid. But hey, who isn't underpaid? Join the club. This is a busy road, and most of the traffic is agriculture related. I gotta fill up one more time and I'll have enough to finish the last of this 200 acres. Topped off, ready to finish it off. Jeff's gonna go get more for a farm north of Mattoon. Looks like the neighbor's side dressing. Another neighbor is starting to plant some beans where all that tile work was just done. And another neighbor to the south is spraying. I think we made the right call moving over here. It's amazing how much you can get done with the sprayer when you're not having issues. Although I haven't tried folding up yet, so we'll cross that bridge when it comes. There's always a handful of farms in certain locations I jokingly refer to as God's country. I know that's confused some of you because I've gotten some messages asking about what God's country means. There's really nothing more to it than a little bit of humor. As farmers, we joke of areas as being highly productive and low work as God's country dirt. Ground like this, black, fertile, pretty easy going to farm, big fields. This is exactly what you call God's country. In all reality, everything on this planet is God's country, but it is always fun to joke about those who have it better than you, who farm the good, big, square, 640 acre fields that grow 300 bushel corn. You could practically throw the seed on top of the ground in God's country. It's that easy. With our location on the glacial moraine and such a large diversity of soil types, I can joke about it because we farm in what would be God's country. Farms like this that are super productive and not a lot of work. And at the same time, we also have a lot of farms that require much more work per acre because they're just not as productive. It's that simple. Last pass, baby. Getting pretty good at this spraying thing. Although I shouldn't toot my horn too quickly. We'll wait and see if we get any angry phone calls here in the next week. We are about 20 miles west of Mattoon. We're gonna hop on Route 16, zip our way to right west of Mattoon, just a mile or two. We've got a short 70, a short 80, and a short 20. When I say short, it just means that I'm rounding up or down. So if I say it's a short 80, that means it's like 75, 76, maybe 77 acres. It's a short 20, it's like 18 acres. It's easier to say that than to say, oh, it's 18 acres. We're not launching rocket ships out here, folks. We're just trying to spray corn. This is the neighbor that just went by with the soybean planter. He had all this tile work done by Colt Roderick. I know from farming next to this field in particular for decades that it's extremely wet. Probably the best money he could have spent out there. But literally everywhere you look, there are people side dressing, spraying, planting. This is the place to be right now. About halfway to the next field. Right here is where that tornado crossed last December. They had to completely rebuild this fuel facility. We made it to the field with no issues. Jeff is nowhere to be found though, and he had a pretty tremendous head start to get up to Helena, catch another hot load, and be here. I don't want to be the guy that calls a million times and pesters him, but at the same time, I almost want to call him and make sure he's okay, because he really should have been here. Unless they just had a long line at the mix bay. We'll just call him real quick, it'll probably annoy him.
Hello?
Everything all right?
Yeah, I'm headed that way now.
Did he just have a line? Was there a line?
Yeah.
That's fine, just making sure you're okay. See you soon.
I'm good. Be there in a few minutes.
Okay, see ya. If you didn't have to wait occasionally, you wouldn't appreciate all the times that you don't have to wait. You gotta see the full circle perspective on it. Here's a quick field report from the last field we sprayed. We technically have two fields over there. There's an 80 and a 120. Actually, 121. It sprayed like 121.99 with my newfound settings, which means I'm pretty much dialed in. If I'd done that with the settings I sprayed soybean residual with, it would have sprayed like 130. So I'm glad we got that fixed. Rate's a little bit low. I do have the size 4 tips on. Honestly, I'm happy with that rate. That'll make sure we don't run out. It's one thing having to bill extra acres for a product that's $20 an acre. It's another thing for a mixture that's $40 an acre. Rather be a tad bit low than too high.
There's Jeff. I've only been here for 4 or 5 minutes, so no big deal at all. Gave me time to stretch my legs and take a leak.
Alrighty, loaded up with enough product to spray 70 acres plus, which is what we have here. Let's hit it. Here's an interesting situation that you really have to be cognizant of when you're spraying. We've got a neighbor to the north with a nice pretty field of soybeans. They look great actually. We've got a slight southerly breeze. Normally I'd spray right on the middle of that 60-foot bulk row to get a 120-foot pass. I'm going to cheat over 2 rows right now. One, if I was in the center, my boom hangs over anyways, but I don't want to run any risk of getting the neighbor. Also going to bump my boom height control down to about 20 inches, and I'm going to maintain a lower speed than normal. So I may put my set point at 10 mile an hour. The slower ground speeds means lower gallons per minute. That all ultimately means that you're pushing less pressure through each nozzle, resulting in larger droplet sizes and hopefully less driftable fines. Last thing I want to do is cook the neighbor's beans. I'd rather have a couple of feet of weeds here than hurt his bean. Thankfully, Dad used an auto steer line here, so I know his row's straight. This is actually the first situation I've been in with the sprayer where poor operating can actually seriously hurt someone's crop. I've got a pretty hot mix in the tank with the Acheron GT and a pound of atrazine. Those beans would not be happy if they got a dose of that. Dog, would you please move behind me? I don't want to spray you. That's just not good practice. Kind of getting out of the way. I don't think intentionally. He's gonna go check on those chickens. Smart man. I've come to the conclusion that I may need to run the corn planter next year. My dad's planting job out here is just absolutely whack. The corn does look great though. Just the organization of the planting is confusing. The nice thing about making 120-foot swaths through the field is that if you did run over some corn, by the time you turn around and come back, you're so far away from it that you can't even tell. Last pass. Would you just appreciate how good this corn looks? This is some of that God's country dirt though, so it doesn't take much effort to get this kind of appearance. Cross another one off the list. Moved on to another good looking field of corn. Gonna spray one more after this and call it a night. Already got 55 acres done in this field. I'm gonna hop out, top off, last fill up of the night. Compartment on this tanker has been sitting since the first load on the first field, so I'm kind of mixing them together right now. There's no such thing as too much agitation so long as you don't start foaming out the top. I hedged my bet against that earlier. I put some defoamer in. Definitely have to earmark that in the morning that whatever's left on the tanker and the sprayer is going to need some heavy agitation. The Acheron GT is a pre-mix, so I don't think it will really solidify out. That quart of atrazine we're putting in though is a little bit problematic. Atrazine products are always a headache when you're mixing in the solution. You got to make sure they're constantly churning or they'll settle out. Okay, we're loaded up. Let's finish this day strong. I don't know why people always call me once I'm out of the cab because I leave my phone mounted in the sprayer. Phone call never comes in when I'm running with auto steer straight down the road not having issues. It's when I'm either trying to hand steer or I'm outside filling. It's only about 6 o'clock. I could get another load and keep spraying tonight, but it's our first day out. We got a good forecast. I'm not going to push it too much. Tomorrow is hopefully going to be my big day. Oh, I hate to even say it. I'm really starting to enjoy spraying. I haven't had a breakdown recently though, so one of those might change my tune. These size 4 tips sure are handy for spraying next to neighbors with their pesky soybeans. I have to ask myself when I'm spraying, what would I want the neighbor to do if they were in the same position? I would want them to do everything they can to not hurt my crop, but cover theirs as much as possible. So I'm trying to do the same. With some neighbors, you just can't win. So if we get an angry phone call, won't be too surprised. I've talked numerous times about how atrazine's a headache. We're going to take extra precaution to make sure our boom doesn't get plugged up with a bunch of junk. So we're going to switch from our solution tank to our water tank. We are going to go into our section control, turn the master off. Make sure you remind me to turn that back on before we start spraying tomorrow. We've already gone into our rate setup, cut the rate. Basically, I'm just going to turn it on with the water tank. There is going to be a little hot product in the boom still fully concentrated, which is why I'm running a reduced rate. Once it gets out, I'm probably going to run 20 or 30 gallons through. That should be enough to kind of bleed off a lot of that concentrated product in the boom. Tomorrow morning, we will have to reprime it. I do think though that this is kind of a wise choice. The 6 gallon per acre rate wasn't working because I wasn't getting the minimum pressure requirement to keep some of the valve bodies open. I ran it up to 14.8 again, and then I'm just running full speed. I don't think I really have to move that much through it to get a lot of that atrazine out. I definitely got a lot to learn on that part of the equation. Let's go ahead and turn our section control master back on. I should have seen how many acres I sprayed before I did that because it counts that again as more spraying. I'm actually pretty much dialed in on acreage. Surprised at how much those small setting changes in my section control make a difference for how much over application or under application I'm doing. I went from running 3 to 4% heavy on acres to right on the money, if not a tad bit below. For not even knowing I was going to spray today, it ended up being a relatively productive evening. I'd say with Roundup in the tank, I probably shouldn't park on the yard anywhere. Probably wouldn't be alive by the end of the day tomorrow if this thing leaks at all. 400 acres in my first afternoon/evening of spraying corn. As a matter of fact, I've never even rode corn before that first field. I've never side dressed. We've had everything custom done for so long that it's a learning process for me, because a lot of these things I've never had the opportunity to do myself. Either way, it was a good start. I didn't really go into too much detail on anything because this really wasn't ever supposed to be a spraying video. It just kind of got rolled into one. I'll give you guys the nitty-gritty details in the next episode. But for now, this one's going to come to an end. As always, I greatly appreciate every single one of you continuing to tune in and support the channel. Your viewership means the world to me. Catch you all in the next episode. Until then, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!